Steve Kerr expects faster progress with James Wiseman in the G League. Pivot played 2 games for the Santa Cruz Warriors. After sending James Wiseman to the G League, Golden State Warriors head coach Steve Kerr spoke about his expectations for the player. The center has played 2 games since he was relocated to the Development League and has gained more minutes on the court. In an interview with Dalton Johnson from the NBC Sports Channel, the coach said he expects the athlete to evolve. Practice is the big thing. When you get individualized attention like the G League guys, progress is faster, I think. As opposed to the NBA season, above all, when it's not in the rotation. I believe it's all part of the natural evolution of a young player who entered the league when the pandemic started. On top of that, he missed 1.5 years due to injury, said Kerr. In the G League, Wiseman played in 2 games, averaging 24.7 minutes, 17 points, and 11 rebounds. In his first participation for the Santa Cruz Warriors, he made good use of the pitches and scored 19 points and 11 rebounds, but he was defeated. In the second duel, the team affiliated with the Warriors won and the pivot had 15 points and 11 rebounds. The 21-year-old is expected to spend at least 10 days in the Development League. However, if the effect is not immediately positive, it may last longer. That season, in the NBA, the player averaged 7.3 points and 4 rebounds in 14 minutes played. The Golden State coach also attributed the pandemic and his injury as problems for the lack of a base for the athlete. That, then, is what Steve Kerr expects James Wiseman to acquire in the G League. Every player needs a base. So when it comes to a guy who's lost all this time, because of these circumstances, he really hasn't been able to build that foundation. So we need to try to do the right thing to help him get better. That's what we're thinking about, concluded the Warriors coach. It is worth noting that even though he spared his starters in the loss to the New Orleans Pelicans, Kerr kept Kevin Looney in the starting lineup. Thus, he did not consider summoning Wiseman in an emergency way and remained with the number 5 shirt on the court. This, by the way, was Looney's 128th consecutive game in the regular season, being the second player with the highest active streak in the NBA.